Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Has the wall of Funko Pops gotten taller? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Mystery Writer speaking, and welcome to the show. Today is Friday the 13th. Yes, and of course, Jason here. Jason, right here, right over here. Say hi, Jason. I mean, he would, except Lord Zed's on top of him. Alright, anyways. And Jason and I are going to be talking about Freaky. No, not Freaky Friday. Not the Disney movie. I'm talking about Freaky, the newest Blumhouse horror film. This film first popped up on my radar about a month ago when I read an article in where Stephen King actually tweeted that Vince Vaughn should be nominated for an Oscar for his dual performance in the upcoming horror film Freaky. And so I decided to watch the trailer, and it looked like a really fun movie. So I decided to check it out at my earliest convenience upon release. Luckily for me, there is a drive-in less than 10 minutes away from where I live. I mean, yeah, sure, most of the big chain movie theaters are closed now because of the pandemic. But luckily, some of the local ones are still open, up and running. Not as busy, although the drive-in was a tad bit busier this time around, but I still had a great experience nonetheless. But enough about that. Let's just talk about the movie itself. Freaky is very similar in tone to Happy Death Day, and where it takes slasher elements and put them in a comedic setting. But rather than taking Groundhog Day and turning it into a horror movie, this movie, as I previously mentioned, takes inspiration from Freaky Friday, the Disney film that was remade into a Lindsay Lohan starring vehicle back in the early 2000s, which was fairly popular back in the day. And again, Lindsay Lohan was a very popular actress way back then, before she went completely nuts. Yeah, the less we talk about that, the better. But anyways, let's just go ahead and give a brief summary of the plot. Now, the film stars Catherine Newton, a young girl whose father passed away a year before the film's events. Homecoming is coming up on Friday the 13th. Most likely why the movie came out on Friday the 13th. Clever, I know. Catherine Newton's Millie Kessler lives with her alcoholic mother, mourning the loss of her husband and her cop sister, all of who have been dealing with the tragedy of their loss in different ways. The mother drowning herself in alcohol and slowly losing her sanity, while the sister drowns herself in her work. And Millie is just left to her own devices, really trying to pick up the pieces. At school, things are not that much better. She is bullied by both her fellow classmates and by one really pissed off shop teacher who gives her a lot of crap for literally no reason. Dude, you're a shop teacher. Get over yourself. Anyways, she soon becomes the target of the Blissfield Butcher. Yes, that's right. The town they live in is called Blissfield. And yes, they try to make it look as picturesque and shiny as possible, and it's freaking hilarious. I mean, the first time you see that sign, Blissfield, it's like, wow, really? 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 Fon's butcher, who we never actually, I don't think we ever learned his real name, but regardless, he dispatches 4 teenagers. That's right, 4 teenagers in the opening scene. And it's awesome. He kills one guy with a wine bottle. He kills one girl with a toilet. He kills one guy with a tennis racket. And then he spears another girl before stealing an Aztec dagger. Apparently, this dagger is called La Dola and is part of a ritual, and where, if used, but if the ritual is not successful, the souls of the 2 people will be switched. And so, after Millie is left after a football game where she is the mascot, because her mother was actually drunk on the couch and forgot to pick her up, Millie flees from the Blissville butcher, only to end up getting stabbed. Later that night, after surviving her ordeal thanks to her older sister's intervention, she and the butcher switch bodies. And now Millie only has 24 hours to get her body back, or the results will be permanent. Along the way, she is held by her 2 friends, and, of course, her eventual crush, Booker. Who names her kid Booker? Seriously. Well, anyways, that's all of the plot that I'm going to give away for this time. But I would like to say that this film was a lot of fun. This is probably one of the funniest horror films I've seen in a long time. While it's not on the same level of, say, Army of Darkness or Tucker and Dale versus Evil, or even Cabin in the Woods level comedy and meta humor, this film knows how to use and utilize horror cliches for comedic relief. Yes, this movie is definitely cliche and predictable, but in all the fun ways. It's not the groaning, eye-rolling kind of predictability. Rather, it's the, ooh, please let this happen, please let this happen, yay, it happened! Oh, I feel so fulfilled. And it just delivers on that each and every time. Plus, I can see why Stephen King actually said what he said. Vince Vaughn probably had one of the best performances of his entire career in the dual performance as Billy stuck in the killer's body and the killer. When Vince Vaughn is Millie trapped in the killer's body, he acts all girly, but at the same time, it's convincing. You believe that he is a teenage girl stuck in a man's body. It's very reminiscent of Jack Black's performances in the latest Jumanji films. But then we switch over to the other half of his performance, and where he's the cold, calculating killer. And he, once again, is very convincing. He's very similar to my boy Jason right here. See that? See that little Jason? See that little Jason? See that little Jason? Yeah. He's cold, he's calculated, he's unremorseful, and he is a brutal killer. I guess you can finally say that Vince Vaughn may have finally redeemed himself in the horror genre after the disastrous Psycho remake back in the 90s. I guess Vince Vaughn can play a convincing psycho killer person thingamajig. And Catherine Newton also played a very convincing character herself. And again, a dual performance. She is a convincing teenage girl going through the motions, but at the same time learning to be her own person. And then on the other half, she's also a cold, calculated psycho killer. trapped in a teenage girl's body. Fun stuff. But anyways, the performances are really good. They are given fantastic dialogue. And it's just so dang funny. While this is definitely not the funniest horror film I've ever seen, Cabin in the Woods is better. Dale and Tucker. Again, Cabin in the Woods, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Army of Darkness, Ghostbusters, if you count that as a horror movie. Those are all definitely better films. Why do I say that? Well, the film definitely knows that it is a slasher film. And it plays to that. It knows it's cliche. It knows it's predictable. But uses it to its advantage each and every time. And I loved it for it. But the film definitely had its weaker aspects. For starters, they definitely introduced a lot of plot elements, such as the alcoholic mother, the workaholic sister, etc. And these are sort of pushed over to the side and left to be resolved kind of on their own without much exploration rather than diving deep into them. And thus, from that point of view, it's definitely weaker in those elements. The story as a whole works fine. It is serviceable, enjoyable, and entertaining, but definitely left you wanting more, especially with the killer character. I mean, for starters, we never even learn his name. He's just the Blissfield Butcher. He's a homeless guy who I think he really hates women, judging by what he does with those, mannequins we found in his place. But that's it. We never know why. He's just an urban legend passed on for decades, but we never know why he's a killer. He's just a psychopath. He's just a psychopath embodying Jason Voorhees. I mean, yeah, sure, he talks. He's cold. He definitely has a personality. Unlike Jason. But we never get a backstory for him. And that is both a good thing and a bad thing. On one hand, you want to know more about this character. What makes him tick? Why is he like this? Why is he homeless? Why is he a psycho killer? We don't know. He's just a killer. But on the other hand, it definitely adds an aura of mystery surrounding the character and leaving you wondering, what is his deal? Why does he kill? Every killer has a reason for their kill, for their dangerous habits, why they kill. Freddy Krueger, he was the son of 100 maniacs who decided to kill children because of his own insecurities and possible mental issues. And then he was burned to death by the angry parents of those who he murdered. And then he came back as a vengeful spirit who killed people in their dreams. Jason Voorhees drowned as a child. He somehow witnessed his mother's death, and so now he exacts his revenge by killing anybody that comes in his way. You get the idea. A killer needs a motivation. And we never actually get that with the Blissfield Butcher. He's just another psycho killer, and that's about it. He definitely has a personality. He is a smart guy, but that's all we really know of him. He's just there. He exists. He is a local urban legend that turns out to be true, and that's it. So there definitely could have been more to his character, but for the most part, it was well handled. It is definitely an above-average film, but certain story elements could have definitely been stronger, more fleshed out, especially with the Blissfield Butcher and some of the secondary plot elements. And yeah, the film is predictable and cliche, but again, the film knows that it's cliche and predictable. It just runs with it in all the most fun ways possible. And so, I give Freaky a 4.5 out of 5. Again, it's an above average, entertaining film that will have you laughing. But the story could have been stronger in some certain areas. But it's still a really fun movie, regardless. Well, that's all the time I have for today. This has been the Mystery Writer speaking, and until next time, sign